it. I think we have to allow the possibility, but my guess is that they'll find a way of muddling through the winter. It's going to be tough, though.
Now, Secretary of State Baker is meeting with Boris Yeltsin and with the Soviet or former Soviet defense minister. What does the Secretary have to get from Yeltsin in order that we can all sleep a little bit better at night?
Well, you know, I'm not at all involved in these talks directly, but my guess is that topmost on our mind is to find out what's going to happen to control of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction as they move to a new political system.
And are there some kinds of reassurances that Boris Yeltsin can give us to make us believe, with all of these nuclear weapons spread out amidst all these various and now independent republics, that things are going to be okay?
I think we need assurances not only from him, but obviously from the other republics where they are located. They're not located in all republics. The other republics, other than Russia, where they are located, have indicated that they do not want to retain them, but at the same time, they do not want to transfer them simply to Russia. Now, the new Commonwealth proposal, which was concluded last week, though still very general, would keep them in central hands. In other words, they would not be under direct Russian control. But these things are still being worked out, and I am sure the United States is going to want to make sure they remain under some sort of reliable and stable central control.
The Russians are now asking for recognition, independent recognition, which would formally certainly absolve our acknowledgement that the Soviet Union exists. Should we give it now?
Well, I think we should be prepared to give it at an appropriate time, and the appropriate time would be when certain conditions have been met. It seems to me that there must be some demonstration from each of these republics that want to go independent that that decision was arrived at in a democratic manner, and that public opinion is behind it. That's first of all. Second, I think we will want assurances that previous agreements will be kept, particularly those involving arms reduction and arms control. And finally, I would hope that we also would make sure that there is a commitment to carry out the human rights provisions of the Helsinki Final Act. This is going to be very important for the future. So I think we ought to have certain conditions out there, but having set those conditions, I think we should be prepared to move with, with reasonable speed in recognition.
Ambassador Jack Matlock, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Do appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Paula?
It's 15 minutes after the hour. Coming up next, who won the Democrats' first presidential debate?
Lines reopen.
I don't like it at all. I like things to run smoothly.
Doesn't it make Londoners a little crazy to have to put up with all of this stuff?
Yes, and me, I have to get to work as well, and well, that's the problems we have.
Police believe today's explosion was the work of the IRA. Last spring, in a similar attack, one man was killed and dozens injured when an IRA bomb went off inside a station.
If they keep this up, they're going to bring the country down before the end of the year.
By mid-morning, the public transit system was pretty much back to normal, but not so London business. Shoppers couldn't get to town to buy. Some employees couldn't get to town to open the stores. It's all a part of an increasingly familiar pattern this Christmas season of disruption and danger. Danger from the IRA's other tactic, firebombs set off in shops and even hidden inside merchandise. Frustrated police called for extra vigilance, but the terrorists have the upper hand in a society where police simply cannot be everywhere all of the time. Barry Peterson, CBS News, London.
In Moscow this morning, Secretary of State Baker arrived at the Kremlin for a meeting with the man in charge. That man is Russian President Boris Yeltsin, whose entourage even included the Soviet defense minister, the top military man in the Gorbachev government. The Russians say it's about time Washington recognizes that the old Soviet Union is no more.
We do ask now for full diplomatic recognition of independent states in this part of the world, those which created this new Commonwealth.
Baker is carrying a U.S. offer of $400 million to help pay for dismantling the Soviet nuclear arsenal. In Egypt, rescue teams have pulled at least 178 survivors out of the Red Sea after a ferry hit a reef and sank. But officials fear that 500 people died in the shark-infested waters. Witnesses say the ferry went down late Saturday night, just minutes after it hit the reef. Officials think bad weather and poor navigation led to the disaster. People on the Hawaiian island of Kauai are cleaning up after a weekend of torrential rains and flash floods. At least 3 people were killed during the storm. One town got 15 inches of rain.